Making room and making plans. Moving up, letting go, and kicking back. There are things in life that matter, and at NBT Bank, we're always here to help make those things possible. Because making it easier for you to live your life and focus on what matters to you is what we focus on every day.
Welcome to the 21st Century Business Forum. I'm your host, Jon Gordon, and today my guest is Renée Mauborgne. Renée is the professor of strategy at INSEAD, one of the world's largest business schools. Renée was named the #1 management thinker by Thinkers 50, and she's the author of Blue Ocean Strategy, a book that has sold 4 million copies. Her newest book, Blue Ocean Shift, is incredible. You'll get a lot of insight from Renée, and she will share practical steps and actions that you can take to start thinking differently, to improve your business and also your leadership and life. Renée, let's take it away.
Thanks, Jon, for having me.
So Renée, you are the author of the incredible book, Blue Ocean Strategy. We're going to get to your other book in a second, but Blue Ocean Strategy has been a mega bestseller, 4 million copies. It's impacted so many businesses and people around the world. Can you explain what Blue Ocean Strategy is all about for those who don't know?
Yeah, we looked at the field of strategy and what companies are doing. We found out that most companies compete in existing industries, which tend to have supply exceeding demand. It's intense competition. It's pretty bloody red. And we call that the red ocean. And while most companies were competing there, we saw other companies recreating existing markets or creating new markets where there wasn't any competition. And those new markets were wide, open, profitable, and untainted, almost as beautiful as the blue ocean. So we came up with the terminology red ocean to signify existing industries that are competitive, and blue ocean, the new markets or market competing versus market creating. And that's what Blue Ocean Strategy hits on.
Well, you're famous for saying, don't compete, create. Right. Can you talk about how we could actually start to think about that in our businesses? How do we have a don't compete, create mindset, especially right now?
Yeah, I think, the real critical thing is ask yourself, how do you formulate strategy? So for most companies, they play a follow the follower game. They benchmark the competition under the assumption the competition knows what they're doing. And at the same time, the competition is looking to you as though you know what you're doing. And what happens is companies tend to focus on following one another and chasing each other instead of chasing and creating value in the market. So the first question you want to ask yourself is that the way we formulate strategy? Are we always focused on taking the industry as it is and trying to beat competitors within it? And then reframe that to say, what if we didn't set out to compete, but to make competition irrelevant? What would we need to start doing there? And suddenly looking to the competition becomes futile if your aim is to make them irrelevant. So that starts to open your mind about why not only competing, but how to create. So that would be the first major way you want to start shifting your mindset.
How important is it to innovate and adapt right now, given what we've been through as a country and also what businesses are going through right now with this evolution? I would also say a revolution in many ways.
Yeah. I think that to have resilience for companies in these really tough times, you need to do two things. On the one hand, you need to manage your cash flow for today, so you're there for tomorrow and you can survive. So that's obviously critical. But if you're not also thinking about how you're going to, and that's all you're thinking about, how to grow, you're not creating a stronger future for tomorrow. So you want to try to sit about balancing. Now, it really depends on where your company is. So if I'm one of the companies that benefited tremendously from the pandemic, like an Amazon, like a Netflix, like a Microsoft or Square, these digital companies, I am going to really focus on optimizing what I do and making sure I got that right, because my innovation has already been there and I'm reaping the rewards of that. If I'm a company today where things have been shut down, a lot of things shut down, I'm being tremendously constrained, I'm a restaurant, I'm going to really have to start thinking about how I'm going to be creating to get out of that mess that we're in today. So I think it depends on where your industry exactly is on that balance there. But for a lot of industries, what I would say, even going into the pandemic, they were pretty me too. If they draw, we have one tool, it's called Strategy Canvas. It's what do you compete on and what do you offer customers? And for most companies, if they would just draw that simple picture, they'd see they pretty much look like most of their rivals. And when you have that, whether there was a pandemic or there isn't a pandemic, you need to start shifting that. So innovation will really matter. So it's about really balancing that, managing today and building tomorrow, I think. That's what I would say, John.
I love that. I was talking to a leader the other day, and he said that the COVID pandemic actually accelerated innovation like 10 years. We're 10 years ahead of where we would have been. Do you agree with that? And what do you see right now in terms of innovation, where our country is going and also where industry is going?
So I think that right now, I think everyone knows they need to start innovating, and that if they're going to come out of this, the forces are all unexpected. They're going to have to come out in a different place than when they went in. And certainly if they want to create growth and not be left behind, that's going to be critical. I think at the same time, there's a lot of fear in people where they know they need to do that, but they're not necessarily acting, and people are scared in companies. And so I think they really need a roadmap about how to get there and how to do that. So I think, the recognition is there that they need to innovate. I think that's there. I think some companies are still very much in a survival mode, just trying to make each dollar work. But I think to really get you there, you can't only want to be there. You need to know how to get there. And that's what I think our book, Blue Ocean Shift, is all about. It really walks companies through not only what's the difference between a red and a blue, but how do you take your team in a way that they buy into the process and step by step move you from the as is to a stronger and brighter future with a more innovative capability.
I'm so glad you mentioned Blue Ocean Shift. What's the difference between Blue Ocean Strategy, your first book, and Blue Ocean Shift, your new book?
So Blue Ocean Strategy really laid out what's the difference between a red and a blue and what keeps you trapped in the red ocean, right? So one is benchmarking the competition, trying to win share from your rivals, acting as though the industry can't be shaped when in reality, every industry that exists was created by individual firms. And as individual firms created them, they can shape them. We should not disempower ourselves and give it to the market. We have to empower ourselves. So that's the difference, red and blue. But when that book came out, and as you articulated, John, it really took off across the world. People started coming to us and started saying, well, look, I'm stuck in the red. I understand the difference, but how do I actually take my organization and shift? All we have is the competence to compete, but we don't have the competence to create. So we spent the next 10 years to understand, how do you really shift? How do you step by step bring your people along? What does it take? What could go wrong? What are the lessons? What are the pitfalls? And how do you overcome those pitfalls? So in Blue Ocean Shift, 90% of the companies in there are companies that took those tools and frameworks from Blue Ocean Strategy, actually put them into practice, saw what worked, what didn't. So these are real life examples of what it takes to do. So if, in a nutshell, Blue Ocean Strategy is the what, and Blue Ocean Shift is the how. How are you going to move from the red to the blue, and get there with your people?
I love that you give a lot of application in the book and you help people take action, because that's what it's all about. In terms of steps, I don't want to give away the whole book because people need to read it because it's an amazing book, but what are a few steps that companies, leaders can take to make that blue ocean shift?
We have really simply 5 steps. I won't go into all of them, but one is choosing the right place to start and getting your team. So that's one. But I think the first thing I already mentioned is getting clear on the current state of play and understand where you stand, because I think a lot of organizations live in illusion about themselves, and they don't understand to what extent their industry in benchmarking one another has commoditized themselves. So one is getting clear, but really where you start to get the insights. So that's really about getting alignment in your team that we should shift. Because if you look like everyone else, you're not obviously going to stand out from the crowd. And when people are parceling out their dollars in a very conservative way, as they do in a pandemic and coming out of a crisis, they're going to put their money where you have maximum value. And if your value is equal to everyone else, you're not going to be getting those dollars. So that creates a wake-up call. But really where you start to get the insight is just go to the next one. Imagine what could be. Can we find the pain points in our industry that we don't even recognize that exist because we've been looking at it in a standard way? And in doing that, understand how we can grow the industry. So I think that would be really powerful, because when a French fry maker, for example, it was an industry declining 10% a year in value. French multinational, Group Seb, it's called, over 100 years old. They own the brands Tefal or Moulinex. They looked at this product and there's like, it's just going down. What are we going to do? And when they started to apply this tool called the buyer utility map and look at the pain points from search to disposal, they found out that the biggest pain point of the industry wasn't in the fryer, but was in the oil that you have to buy to use the fryer. And that was, first of all, expensive to buy the oil. You didn't know where to store it when you used it. It made frying dangerous. It made it smelly in your house. You didn't know how to throw the oil out. And so that gave them the insight, what if we could create a fryer with no frying in oil? And so the air fryer was born. And when they did that, people that were health conscious became their customers as well. And people who wouldn't buy fryers, even though they love homemade fries, wouldn't do it because there's too much mess in the old way, became it. And they grew the industry by 40%. And in 5 years, created $1 billion business. So, that's one simple tool you can work with in your own industry with your employees to say, hey, let's take this simple map and let's find out, is there pain points in searching, in buying complementary products, disposing our product that we don't even see. And if we flip those problems into and got rid of them, we could unlock all this opportunity. And it's just a great way. Sometimes it'll lead to a blue ocean, but that one step alone can find a lot of low-hanging fruit you can begin to act on, which will give you the confidence that, hey, if we could find that here, what could we find if we took another step? And, you want to be building confidence in an organization that they can do it, because confidence is very important in times of stress and in times of unexpected change as we're going through today.
So let's talk about confidence. How important is leadership and confidence in implementing these shifts that we're talking about?
That's paramount. Leadership matters, not only at the top of an organization, though. So we shouldn't outsource it and only complain at the top. It matters at our own level with who's ever below us or next to us. And what we found in creating a blue ocean shift, but in looking at major transformations across time, are two things. In times of crisis or stress, like the pandemic we're going through now, I think we saw you need two things. Leaders need to have humanness and they need to have confidence. And what I mean by humanness is they need to acknowledge and pay intellectual and emotional respect to their employees to understand, really what they're going through. What are their struggles? What makes it difficult? People want to be heard and they want to be felt. They need to be able to voice that. And, in Blue Ocean Shift, we really talk about how do you achieve then this humanness? And one key tool is what we talk about is fair process. And it's engaging people, hearing their inputs. Right now, everyone's working from home. They feel disconnected. They don't really understand what's going on. They have the kids running around next to them as they're trying to work. So are we engaging our employees enough? Are we setting clear expectations about, why we are going to, and expectations about why we may need to restructure, why we may need to shift to all home delivery and no longer in store? Why are we doing things? And give people that confidence. When people feel understood and that their concerns are heard and they don't feel like they're just disassociated working from home, not knowing what's going to happen, they start to relax. So one is humanness, and I think they're very good at making people feel heard. And the other one is confidence. And confidence is, as a leader, showing people that together, if we work together as a team, we can come out stronger and better. And what is that roadmap? And I think Blue Ocean Shift, through the tools and that simple process we work you through, is a way to build people's competence, but also migrate people. So, building a resilient organization and leadership, you want to focus on, am I being humanistic enough? People need to be heard. They're scared. They're worried. And when they do, they're willing to open their mind to you and then giving them the confidence that I have a trajectory and a roadmap, and together we can come out stronger. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we can do that. And that's what Blue Ocean Shift tries to articulate there.
So good. When you first start working with a company and a leadership group, where do you start?
You know, so it really depends on who brings us in, right? And normally if they're going to bring us in, it's because they themselves believe in the process, or they believe some part of their organization needs it. So if it's a CEO and they have multi-businesses, we're going to first want to talk to the heads of the businesses, because you don't want to rip up a whole company. And we want to find a business head or the head of a product or the head of even the service division versus the product that believes they want to shift. If you have people that are all fighting and filled with fear, it's like leading someone to water that doesn't want to drink. It's very, very hard. So you want to start with someone that believes that they want to do that. And then the next thing I want to do is really talk to the team and find out what should the team look like that's on it. And I want to have 1 or 2 complainers on the team, people from different parts of the organization, so people feel heard and not imposed on. And I want to put that team together. So that's the first thing I would want to do. And then I would say, go back to what I said, draw the strategy canvas. And I would never say we need to shift. I would say maybe we do and maybe we don't. You tell me. Just draw this picture. If we can see how we're differentiating low cost from the competition, we need to optimize that curve. Let's not shift. But if you show me when you draw this and our curvers come in, we're me too, tell me if that's building a brighter future. People will say, well, actually, probably not. Then do you think we need to shift? Let them tell you, because they've discovered it themselves. And that creates an openness, and people don't feel the top is imposing. And people are learning in the process, which is very inspiring. And I think, it's a step-by-step process about not top-down imposing, but giving people the tools to self-discover the need. And in each step they take, they're getting smarter and wiser in the process. So I think that's where I step in. John, if I make one last comment on that, often in companies, you have really brilliant people. But what you find is they know their marketing really well. And they know finance, and they know this. But very often in companies, when you really say, like, what does the company stand for? Do you know what the product experience is, the service experience is? They actually know their function well, but they don't understand the business overall. And even that first strategy canvas, where you have to look at everything the customer sees, every element, and how it adds up to the experience, you're getting everyone to look at the company from the way the market sees you. And then their role takes on a new set of importance, because they understand how their silo fits in with everything else and works together. And you start to break all the silos within companies, so they not only see and feel, but understand how they support or don't support one another to achieve the end. And in the end, what you start to really achieve is a cultural transformation of a company starting to talk to one another, understand one another, see what they bring to the table. And in many companies, and that unlocks knowledge. And I think in many companies, that doesn't necessarily happen. And that's very refreshing and helps to create that shift too.
It's a very holistic approach. I was thinking about how it helps a company have a shared vision and mission of where they're going and why they're going there and what they want to create together.
It does. And it does one other thing too, though. It's not like when you hire a consulting company on the outside and they come with this brilliant, smart idea and you're supposed to believe it works. They each step are doing it. So they're actually learning and building that competence, and that knowledge is owned by them. And it's because they have co-created that they own it and they're ready to execute that. And that is part of why the cultural changes. Seeing is believing, and experiencing something yourself. You can't go back from that. And so that starts to move an organization forward in a very important way. So in many ways, it's as much about cultural transformation and upgrading the knowledge level of your staff as much as it is about getting there. And often that in itself is the value. Even if you say, let's just go through an academic exercise, we're not going to act on it. But to get smarter, wiser, and look at the market in a new way, for all of us during this. That in itself has tremendous value.
Are there certain industries that are more ripe for a blue ocean shift, or can any industry, any company implement a blue ocean shift?
So I think, if you look at our book, we have anywhere from orchestras to national governments to prisons to convenience stores, B2B, B2C. We have not seen necessarily a constraining factor. I think, a nuclear power plant might be a little bit more difficult. That's for sure. But I think that if an industry hasn't changed for a while, what you see historically, I think the hardware industry would have said it's impossible until Home Depot comes. The fast food hamburger industry would have said it's impossible with Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, and then Shake Shack comes. Hairdressers on Main Street would have said it's impossible, and then Dry Bar comes. And I think, the question we need to ask is, if it's possible in those industries, and it might be possible in our industry, and we've seen it happen in each industry. And so what that might look like in our industry, and is it worthy of a discussion? And that's what I would say. So we don't see it sector bound or industry bound. History has shown, even in the science, the reason we can analyze the coronavirus is because someone said, I can't see with my eyes little microorganisms. And they created the microscope. And somebody wanted to understand the universe, and our eyes couldn't understand what is up there beyond those little twinkling lights. And so the telescope was created. And so you see, and actually most Nobel Prize winners, they're actually created blue ocean in science. So they have redefined what a field looks like. So no, we don't see sector specific. No.
I think what I love most about blue ocean strategy and blue ocean shift is that it's very optimistic. And I'm big on optimism and positivity, but it really is about seeing what's possible, seeing the future, and then creating it. And also, in many ways, blue ocean strategy, blue ocean shift, you actually created your own sector. You didn't compete with every other management book out there. You actually created a whole new approach to thinking about economies, to thinking about businesses, to thinking about world change. So how does it feel to actually apply your own title, your own work to your own work, and also to lead this movement in this way? Because it really is so powerful, and everyone should be thinking this way.
So, I guess if I go back on one thing you said, John, about optimism, of course, if you look at industry history, all the industries that are in existence today, 10 years ago, even, our whole world is being changed by industries in today, whether it's social media, drones, all of this that 10 years ago didn't even exist. And yet today, these are things that are taking down national governments even. And so I think that when we say optimistic, industry history shows that actually the trajectory in the last 100 years has been one of exponential creation of industries. So in a way, it's optimistic, but it's also based on what we see historically happening systematically over time. And I think too much of us are locked into, Einstein said the hardest thing is to have an independent point of view. And of course, then to execute 99% of perspiration, right? To do the work. And I think Blue Ocean gives you different questions to teach you how to have an independent point of view and look at the market. So I would just say that. And for our point of view, to your question, I think it's thrilling. When we were in Michigan in the 1980s and we came up with this, and that was the time when America for the first time was challenged by global competition, and that was the Asian challenge of Japan. All the media said we were a sunset economy, and auto industry, earth moving equipment, textiles, consumer electronics were all devastated. The Rust Belt of America, those words were formed in the 1980s. And the way that we got out of that as a country was we stopped benchmarking, we started innovating. And that's what made us look into red versus blue. And we said, if all they taught in business school was how to compete, but competition was what was killing us, the companies were creating. And to that, might just add that, we are excited if in some small way we can help us think about how we create a brighter future, because with all the low cost countries that exist around the world, and with technology and getting low cost, if we as a developed country only compete on cost, we're not going to have a future. And if we only compete on differentiation, well, not everyone has the money to buy pure differentiated higher premium products. What we need to do is be creative in a reasonable cost faction. And that's what Blue Ocean is about. And we're excited if in some small way our research can help in that direction. So,
Renee, what do we do with the fear that holds us back individually and also collectively in an organization?
Yeah. So as an organization, as I went from a leadership perspective, a leader wants to help people with that fear by listening to what their fears are and showing them that we're building a roadmap together and having a roadmap. And I think that when people feel understood in a roadmap, I think that helps. I think from a point of view as an individual, fear, of course, doesn't help us at all. It paralyzes us at the exact moment we need to be thinking and be clear-headed. And I would say from an individual perspective, you need to really invest in yourself and learn to start thinking about building the knowledge to succeed. And do I know how to add value to my company? Can I know how to help my company find, hey, there is this pain point. If we remove this, we could maybe get more sales. And actually, this is closed in our restaurant today or in our entertainment, in our cinema. But if we did this, maybe we could. And so I'd be really investing in my own knowledge, not waiting for everyone to only help me, to understand how to add value to businesses and how to be innovative and what does that mean. And I think the more value we are able to add, the less fear we have, because the last people that we let go of are those that add the most value to us. So I'd say at an individual level as well. That's what I would say. I don't know, John, I'd be interested. What's your viewpoint on that? Now I'm going to flip the table. Yeah.
I mean, I think, well, no, I'm interviewing you, but I think I love that you asked me that. I think the key is to lead with optimism and belief. Leaders are dealers in hope, and positive leadership is the way forward. It's the way we make the greatest impact. But I love what you said about listening, hearing. It's not about fake positivity. It's about empathy. It's about knowing this is hard and talking about the reality of the situation, but also maintaining optimism, belief, and faith that we can create a better reality going forward. And it is applying your strategy and your shift to the organization to say, okay, what do we want now? What can we create? And to paint that vision and then to work towards it and to collectively come together. Leadership teams, I would say, are more important than ever right now, to come together as a leadership team that are connected and committed. So we're connected and committed to each other and to the vision. And a lot of my work is around that, like getting the team to understand that we can't do it alone. We need to do it together, and having that vision together. So I think our work goes hand in hand in terms of.
When I hear John, I think it really is, because you're echoing. So, in the Blue Ocean Shift process, it's about building the team together. In step one, it is about saying to people, it is hard, but I understand you. And it is about saying the reason we are together is because we are collectively going to build a better future together. And I'm on that journey with you to create a stronger reality, as tough as it is. But guess what? We are capable of hard things. We are not only capable of easy things. And actually, when a team goes through something that is hard and they come out at the other end together, their confidence, their competence, and their sense of themselves is so much strengthened. And it's often the strongest and best memories of their lives. So hard times are often the memories when we come through them together that we cherish and we have so much pride in. And I think that we sell ourselves short, that we have to always sell easy things to our people. They can feel understood. I know it's hard, but I can also ask you to roll up your sleeves and let's look at our reality and try to get there together. So, the Blue Ocean Shift, to what you're saying, and I love the way you articulated that, it's really what each of the steps is. And it's not about outsourcing, it's bringing the team together to discover these things themselves. And in the end, you are creating that road. I would only add, though, I love optimism and hope, and I like the word confidence, but it's not about, too often in leadership, it's a rah-rah call. It has nothing to do with a rah-rah call. It's about building firm competence, because we're looking at our reality with a really bright light and saying, guess what, we're stuck there, but let's take one more tool and see if we find pain points. And if we do, we can actually flip those. And when we do, we create an opportunity to stand apart. So it's building our confidence. Really deep confidence comes when you're building your competence to succeed on that journey together. And I think too often people think it's a quick, easy, I hear you. And it is not that. It's very authentic, actually.
I love that. And it's inspiring to hear you talk that way, because when you think about organizations, it's not like, oh, hey, we're going to go do this. And because we can, but you're going to talk about why you can and what are the skill sets and what are the pain points, as you said, along the way, and the challenges you will face in doing it. Hey, this is going to be hard. This is challenging. But if we come together with the right vision, the right mission, if we work together and we have the right strategy and shift, we can accomplish that. I think about Alan Mulally and how he turned around Ford, and he defined his leadership style as positive leadership. Ford was in a dire situation, if you remember, and he turned them around. And he basically said everyone had to come together, but they had to use their skill sets and their talents to do it. But they lacked belief. And if you don't have the belief, you're not going to create it. So I think it's the combination of two. And I just love the way you bring it all together with having the right mindset, having the right approach to leadership, but then also how to think about it. I think that's where you give people the greatest skill set, and how to think about these things and take action on them. And a lot of people right now listening, because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about my own business, how I had to adapt, how I had to innovate, how I had to actually apply some of your principles during this time. And I know people listening are actually thinking, okay, how does this apply to me? So for a very practical takeaway, what are some things that these small businesses or growing large businesses can do right now during this time, or struggling businesses? What can they do right now to take action to start to implement some of these things that we've talked about?
Yeah, so I'm going to be maybe too technical, and you can tell me I should be more general, but I would really say, we have one simple one-page tool. It's called the Buyer Utility Map. And it traces the whole buyer experience, from searching for your product through use, disposal, supplements, complementary products that you need, all the way through. And it teaches you that. And then it shows you all the levers to utility, value to buyers, simplicity, risk, ease, convenience. And then, we have a set of questions that says, what's the biggest block to ease in each stage? And I would get my whole team together, just get my team together and say, look, or everyone on Zoom, I'm going to email you this one simple map. Everyone come next Wednesday, let's get on Zoom. Show me what you found in your major pain points. Let's have a discussion, because pain points are not something to avoid. They're our opportunity horizon. And if you can find 2 or 3 pain points within your business that are turning off our customers or turning off the issues given what we're faced with, we then start to see that begins to be the first step to turning around our business, and people get inspired by it. And I think, that's what I would just say, because they need concrete things to act on. I can give you something to say, oh, don't benchmark the competition. Well, then what do I look at? Well, then that's a more complicated discussion. But I take this one little map. It's, I think, a 7x7. Anyone can fill it in. It gives you the questions to ask. And it forces you, and maybe you never thought about it. Like, it just kills me, John, that when I go food shopping at 5:00 at night, in the supermarket, only 3 checkouts are open and 7 are closed, when there's all lines and people are rushing home. And that's a real pain point. And I think to myself, where's the manager of this supermarket? Like, why aren't they here? And why is someone stacking the shelf? I would have all men's on deck right now, or all women on deck right now. And I think that a lot of people, goes back to my comment, don't actually look at the business holistically, the way the market sees it. And so because of it, they don't see all the pain points that are right in front of our eyes that bother us as customers, or we just take for granted that's the pain of life going with this industry. And they don't do that. So I would just say, there's one tool on our website, blueoceanstrategy.com. You can download it. It's one page. Share it. Have a have a session with people, ask them to try to fill it out. It gives the questions in the book, and have a dialogue with it. And if nothing else, people will force themselves to see the whole industry from the market perspective. They'll learn a lot, but my guess is they're going to find things that their industry does. And that's the action step. And if I'm a restaurant, I can do it. If I'm a B2B, B2C, I don't care who I am, I can do it. And so, here's a question, John. How many companies that you deal with that when you get off the phone or you leave your interaction, you're like, wow, holy smokes, you can't wait to tell your friend or your mother, your cousin. There are not many that do that to us. And if there are not many that do, that means probably on that buyer utility map, without us knowing it in our industry, because we always look at only purchase or only look at some element and we don't see holistically, we got a lot more pain points going on or inconveniences than we know. And if we can remove them, we can create a lot more of this in people. So that's how I would just say that, very practical. I'm really concrete, get people on deck. Let's do something. Let's learn. Let's take some action there. So buyer utility map, it's in the book.
So you said the website. So you said the website for those who want to get on deck, who want to start taking action, who want to implement a blue ocean shift. Where can they go? What website is that?
So thank you, John. So it's just blueoceanstrategy.com. And there should be a page, it's called Tools and Frameworks. And in there is the buyer utility map, it's called. It's a buyer utility. And that's the one about pain points. People can understand it. And it's looking at your existing business and just real practical. And we want to understand where that is.
I love that. Practical action, anyone can implement. Powerful. Also for the book, same place, the website, they can find a link to the book there.
Thank you, John. Yes, you can find a link to the book, Blue Ocean Strategy there.
Blue Ocean Strategy, Blue Ocean Shift. I want to encourage everyone, read those books for yourself, for your team, and also for your future. Renée, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom, your insights. I know that I got better today. I know that a lot of people improved themselves today by listening to this and listening to you and your insights and just your incredible advice on what we can do to create a brighter and better future. I appreciate you, and the 21st Century Business Forum appreciates you as well.
Thank you very much, John. My pleasure to be with everybody. Thank you, everybody. Go Blue.
And everybody who is listening right now, thank you so much for joining us. We want to thank our sponsors for making this possible. And please join us April 14th, where I will interview Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama football. It's going to be an interview you don't want to miss. I'll see you there.